Hey guys, this is Veera. Today let's talk about what is the mutable and immutable objects in Java. It's very important whenever you go for any interview. It could be either entry level or senior level. Definitely interviewer is going to ask what is the mutable and immutable objects because still a lot of people are not aware how the immutable and how the immutable objects are going to work. So we'll talk about more in detail how can we say it's immutable or immutable. So mutable is very simple. I think most of the people understands. Basically it's the once the object is created we can modify the object or we can modify the state of an object. So that's nothing but the immutable. Whereas the immutable basically once the object is created the object cannot be modified. A lot of people knows the definition but not sure how we can say it's immutable objects. So let's talk about in detail mutable and immutable objects. I'll show you the simple example for the mutable and immutable objects. So I'm going to create a simple class to showcase whether the object is a mutable or immutable object. I'm going to create the class as the product. So the product has an ID and the name, product name. Let's generate a setter getters both, and so I'm saying both. We need to generate the setters and getters. Now let's create a main class to see whether the product is the mutable or immutable object. So let's say mutable main. I'm going to create a main method and create the product object equal to new product. So let's write a product sysout to print the product ID and name, product.getID, and then product.getName. Still we have not added the product ID and product name. So let's set the product ID, let's say 1, and product.set name. So I'm going to set the name as the Mac. Let's run this application and see what is going to print. Obviously it's going to print the product ID as a 1 since we added the 1, and the name it's going to print the Mac since we are setting the name as a Mac. So since this particular class is a public class and since we have a setters and getters, we are able to set it and we are able to get these values. Now try to change these values, product.set ID as a 2 and product.set name as, let's say, electrical. Now if we try to run, since we try to override the product ID and product name, it's going to print the ID as a 2 and the name is going to print as a electrical. So obviously, so since this object is not a final, and since we have a setters and as a getters, setters to set it and getters to get the values, so obviously we can modify this particular object. That is where we can say this particular class. Now let's talk about what is an immutable object. So as we know, immutable is basically once the object is created, that object cannot be modified. So everyone knows about the definition, but not sure a lot of people how we can prove whether that object is a immutable object. So we say that, so generally all the proper classes are immutable objects. So let's see the example. How can we say the object is immutable? So as we know, the final classes are the immutable classes. For example, string is the immutable. Let's prove how we can say string is the immutable. I'm going to create an example for the string example. So I'm going to create a main method and a string, let's say name equal to Ravi, and a string, let's say full name equal to name dot concatenation of Kakarla. So now let's print this name and full name both. So now we see we are trying to print both name and full name, and we are trying to concatenate name to the last name. So I'm supposed to get Ravi Kakarla for both name and full name, but let's see what's going to happen when we try to modify or when we try to concatenation. So now we can see the name is printing as a Ravi. It's not modified. The reason is string is the immutable object. Once the object is created, that object cannot be modified. If you want to know whether the string is the final class or not, just press the control and hold the control and press the string. So you can see, so this class is the final class. So meaning once the class is created, so the class cannot be extended or it cannot be modified. There are other factors as well to showcase the string is the immutable. We'll talk about when we create a custom immutable class, but at this point of time, just understand the string is the immutable object. For example, I have the presentation. So whenever we create any references, let's say string name equal to Ravi, it's going where that Ravi is going to create, it's going to be created in the string pool area. So since we have the reference, if you try to create a new object, obviously it's going to be the heap area. Since here it's only the literal, so it will store into the pool area. Let's say now again if you try to create a Ravi, since the Ravi is already there, it will just have a reference to that. It's not going to create again new Ravi object. Since we try to concatenate Ravi with the Kakarla, so instead of modifying the existing Ravi, it's just going to create a new reference because we try to concatenate, and even though the Ravis already exist, it will just try to create a new reference. So that also will allocate in the string pool area. That is the reason. So the string is the immutable object. So hope you guys are understand what is the mutable and immutable objects. We'll talk about what is the custom immutable and how can we create a custom immutable object. Thank you so much for watching this video. Please do subscribe.